I am a 28-year-old man and my spouse is 26 years old. Our marriage took place 3 years ago, but we have been a couple for 6 years now. Upon meeting my wife, I was already in my 3rd year of college, pursuing a degree that would lead me to a highly profitable and productive career in the oil industry. My work was comparable to that of the U.S. Army, as I was sent to various countries for several months to complete high-risk tasks that paid a premium. After completing the tasks, I would return home for several months before embarking on another assignment. Initially, I would be away for 6, 8, or even 10 months at a time, aiming to advance my career as quickly as possible. This allowed me to earn an average income equivalent to 4 years' worth of work in my home country, all within a mere 3 months. Despite the intense demands of my job, I relish the challenge and find it immensely fulfilling. My wife has been a pillar of support throughout this period, and I am aware of how difficult it must have been for her to cope with the lifestyle. To compensate for the time spent away from her, I make it a point to shower her with lavish gifts and treat her to indulgent trips to exotic destinations. 2 years ago, during the global pandemic, I attempted to return home after completing an extended contract. Unfortunately, due to the closure of borders, I was forced to remain in the foreign country for another 2 months. Upon returning home, the reunion with my wife was not at all what I expected. She confessed to me that she could no longer bear to be separated. Left at home alone and doing nothing, she reached the verge of insanity. While waiting, she lost her job, and because of this disappointment, she no longer wanted to work. I earned well and put her happiness above all else. I fully supported her. Money was not an issue, and her well-being was my top priority. Despite this, I must admit that I was terrified. The whole situation gave the impression that she wanted to break off our relationship, but I was wrong. She didn't want to break up. She told me about her love for me and her desire to have a child together. "If I have your child," she said affectionately, "I will be able to keep a piece of you with me while you work under contract." After careful consideration, we decided to try to have a baby. After 5 months of separation from my wife, it was not difficult for me to continue trying several times a day, if you caught my thought. But as the first month of trying went by, I became more and more anxious. Did our inability to conceive mean that we were infertile? I couldn't help but remember that we hadn't used protection for more than 4 years, and this caused me to feel insecure. But my doubts vanished one morning when she woke me up with a long kiss and a smile. She revealed a positive pregnancy test result, and I was overjoyed. I felt like I was on top of the world. I was now a man and a father. We attended every doctor's appointment together and cherished every moment. Even when I was working on projects abroad, I kept up to date by receiving pictures and echocardiograms. Thankfully, there were no complications with the pregnancy, and the labor went smoothly. Everything went according to plan, and our family was on cloud 9. 1 month after the birth of our child, I left for another contract to earn enough money to provide for our little one's every need. Halfway through the contract, I received a short and simple text message from my wife that sent me into a deep depression. "I want a divorce," it read. I couldn't comprehend it. We were a loving family, doing great, and I was working tirelessly to ensure our well-being. As soon as I received the text message, I attempted to reach her by phone to find out what was wrong or if something terrible had happened. She did not answer any of my calls or texts. After being blindsided by this announcement, I couldn't stop thinking about the situation at home. I urgently requested to be sent back as an emergency, but it would take several days to arrange. Eventually, my request was approved, and as I began to pack my bags, I received a message from her. We spoke for a few days, and she skirted around the topic before finally explaining the reason behind her text. She wanted a divorce so she could marry the love of her life. As I pondered over the woman who was the love of my life, I realized that I needed to head home immediately. Upon arriving in my homeland, I rushed home, only to be met with a deafening silence. It was then that reality hit me hard. Nobody was home. The baby was missing and my wife was nowhere to be seen. 2 weeks later, I found myself in court attending divorce proceedings. During the proceedings, I discovered that my wife had been in a relationship with someone else for more than 4 years. Apparently, this man was the love of her life, and they planned to get married once the divorce was finalized. Due to the complexities of the legal system in my country, I knew that hiring a skilled lawyer was my top priority. My wife, on the other hand, chose to go with a cheaper option, and even represented herself at times, mostly speaking without the help of her lawyer. Her defense was simple: she was guilty of falling in love, and as a woman, she needed someone who was there for her, and her legal husband was constantly absent. Although the law in my country generally favors women, infidelity is still considered a breach of contract when it comes to marriage. In this case, my wife was the one at fault. During the proceedings, she requested full custody of our child, hoping that I would be required to pay child support. I was determined to fight back. After consulting with both my lawyer and accountant, I discovered that I only had to pay child support based on my base salary. My bonuses would not be included as they were related to the risks I took in my profession, as per the law. Therefore, the bonuses I earned were solely mine, as the company paid considerably lower taxes on bonuses related to hazardous tasks. My base salary accounted for only about 10% of my overall income. When my wife realized that she would get very little worth fighting for, I gave her the opportunity to give up full custody of our child without any further contact with me. In addition, I promised never to ask her for child support. She immediately agreed without any hesitation, relinquishing any claim to our child and essentially agreeing to leave our lives. As a result, we were able to modify the birth certificate of our child, naming me as the father and leaving the mother's space blank. During the trial, my wife's lover was summoned as a witness, and to my surprise, he agreed to testify. He appeared to be a cheap imitation of Andrew Tate, trying to emulate an alpha male persona. However, all I could observe was his mistreatment of my wife, which she seemed to find appealing. Despite earning a decent income as the owner of a small but profitable business, his earnings were less than half of mine. Nevertheless, it was still a considerable sum in our country. The irony was that he was always available for my wife, unlike me, who had to take risks and be away from home. During the trial, he admitted that he had been having an affair with my wife for 3 years. He even went as far as claiming that our child was actually his, alleging that my wife had deceived me into believing that the child was mine. He acknowledged knowing about our marriage and the fact that his actions would destroy it, yet he proceeded with the affair. Essentially, he confessed to deliberately interfering with my wife's affection and lawful relationship, which is a punishable offense under the law. My attorney clarified that the sole intention behind their statement was to harm me emotionally, with no benefit to their case, thus worsening it. Although the child's situation had been resolved and a contract had been signed, the matter was not yet fully resolved. The judge posed a direct question to my spouse, asking if she was aware that the child was fathered by her lover. She vehemently denied this, and a DNA test was ordered to verify the truth. Ultimately, we decided to delay the finalization of the agreement until the DNA test results were available. In the event that the child was not biologically mine, I had the option to nullify the agreement and explore alternative resolutions. Once the DNA results were obtained, we returned to court to reassess the terms of the agreement. The judge reviewed the DNA results, which confirmed that the child is not biologically mine. The judge offered me the opportunity to terminate the agreement and pursue a different solution with my wife, based solely on the fact that the child was not biologically mine. But I declined and asserted that I considered the child to be mine and that I intended to maintain custody. The judge was momentarily taken aback but quickly regained composure and explained that as long as the agreement was legally binding and I had no intention of terminating it, I was considered the child's father with full custody rights. In my country, biological parentage is not necessarily the determining factor. What matters is what is documented on official records. Since my wife's lover knew from the very beginning that he was the father, but did not declare paternity in the hospital, he lost his rights as a biological father. While it may seem illogical, the practice of prioritizing the notion of family is designed to safeguard its integrity. If a man acknowledges a child as his own at the hospital, he should not have to worry about the biological father disrupting the family life. Now that the divorce proceedings were completed, I had custody of my child and my unfaithful wife was out of my life. My first priority was to hire 3 babysitters to provide round-the-clock care for my child, not so that I could return to work, but so that I could focus on plotting my revenge. With the assistance of an online assistant from India, I established 2 distinct companies. These assistants can be hired at a reasonable cost and are capable of performing a wide range of tasks online. One of the companies I created was Industrial Credits, which specializes in providing business loans at a lower interest rate than traditional banks. The second company was similar to my ex-wife's lover's business, but was located in the same city. Both of these companies were established solely for the benefit of one client, my ex-wife's lover. Under my assistant's guidance, I began sending a plethora of advertisements for my credit company to my ex-wife's lover's email address. These ads were targeted towards platforms such as Google and Facebook, aiming to showcase our competitive interest rates and generous loan offerings. I was confident that he would be interested in borrowing from us if he ever needed funds. I also ran a series of advertisements for the second company, which was equipped with only essential machinery, a rented space, and a single cleaning staff. Whenever someone inquired about the company's services, they would receive an automated message stating that we were currently overbooked and unavailable. I noticed that my ex-wife's lover called several times, and every time he was refused, he freaked out. I suspected that his frustration stemmed from the realization of the fierce competition he faced. I decided to lay a trap for him, as my company was experiencing issues in its primary country of operation. I couldn't even recall which country the company was registered in. The management had changed, and they were attempting to liquidate some of the company's assets. The regional manager was looking to sell some of the equipment, and as soon as my ex-wife's lover caught wind of this, he began calling and emailing to purchase it. Our response was that, as an international company, we were unable to sell the brand, but we could sell some equipment, but only in accordance with the law. It would have been illegal to sell the company without sharing the accounting data, which was non-existent. Nevertheless, we could legally sell the equipment with a simple contract. My ex-wife's lover was keen on eliminating his competition from the city. Although he had no need for the equipment, the regional manager offered him a deal. He could purchase our equipment for a price triple its value, and we would include a clause in the contract that would halt our business operations in his city. Within just 2 hours, he contacted my first company to apply for a loan. It was obvious that my ex-wife's lover was experiencing financial difficulties due to his extravagant expenses for the upcoming wedding with my ex-wife. I forwarded the contract based on our credit score. However, the cost of the equipment did not correspond to the requested amount, which required a guarantee from him. In addition, his company is prohibited from selling any equipment or assets until he pays off his debts. If he is 6 months behind on payments, I will get full ownership. Furthermore, I included a provision in the contract stipulating that the credit company will purchase the equipment directly. Essentially, I am reimbursing myself, and I meticulously ensure that every word in the document is awful and presents a favorable offer for the other party. Shortly thereafter, he returned the signed agreement. Ideally, he would be capable of covering all expenses, even if the projected clientele from this enterprise failed to materialize. He can achieve this by providing me with approximately 80% of his organization's earnings over the next 5 years. Skipping ahead to their wedding day, I plan to present them with an envelope at the reception, which is customary in our culture, as a monetary gift to support the newlyweds. Upon seeing me brandishing the envelope, he did not become upset. Instead, he burst into laughter, ordering me to leave since I was not invited and they did not require my assistance. I returned his smile and urged him to open the envelope. After examining the contents, he gazed directly into my eyes and chuckled once more before inquiring about its contents. With a grandiose grin, I replied, "I'll see you in court next week. Have a wonderful wedding night. I'm sure you're eager to learn what was inside the envelope. I won't keep you waiting for too long. I'm taking legal action against him for child support. As I mentioned earlier, in my country, if a person is aware of their child's existence and refuses to acknowledge them at the hospital, they are no longer recognized as the father. However, they are still required to pay child support, and deliberately avoiding this responsibility is considered as severe as fleeing the scene of a car accident. Consequently, the child support payments are significantly higher. During the initial custody hearing, he vehemently opposed paying any support, feigning interest in the child, and requesting joint custody on the grounds of being the biological father. It was then that I resolved to take on the responsibility of raising my child and pleasantly surprised everyone with my decision to retain full custody. Prolonging the trial not only exhausted his financial resources but also afforded us the chance to gather DNA evidence to establish his paternity and secure self-incriminating statements. During the child support hearing, the judge only needed to review the statements from the previous trial. The judge reached a swift but painful verdict, ordering him to pay 40% of his income, including earnings from his company, from the time the child was born. He has to make payments until the child finishes college, or I get married. Guess who couldn't pay alimony and who lost their business? Consequently, I am the new owner of his former company and no longer need to work. Instead, I spend most of my time with my child. Many people inquire about my child and the fact that I am not their biological father. I have no intention of concealing this from my child, and we will discuss it when the time is appropriate, most likely during high school or a similar age range. Until then, I will strive to be the best paternal figure and friend possible. If my child chooses to seek out their biological father, I have no qualms. Nor do I agree with the notion of fooling the child into forming a bond. Given all that has transpired, I require my child more than people realize, and I am not currently interested in pursuing a romantic relationship. I find myself feeling alone, and despite having financial freedom, I have no other purpose in life than caring for my child. While my ex-wife and her accomplice received their due punishment for committing paternity fraud, the innocent child was not to blame. I'm not being dramatic, but I keep in touch with them and have hired a lawyer in case they delay the payment of alimony for at least a day. If someone doubts my sincerity in wanting the best for my child, I don't give a damn. I am responsible for myself and my child, and if someone is not able to accept it, maybe the problem is with him.